UFC 318, the BMF card from New Orleans, Louisiana, and the Smoothie King Center. It is the retirement fight for the future Hall of Famer, Dustin the Diamond Poirier, as he looks to finally capture the BMF championship, taking on Max Holloway in a trilogy bout in which Poirier is already up to nothing. So that is the main event this Saturday night from the Diamond's home state of Louisiana. Co-main event, Paulo Costa, Roman Kopylov, I guess? I don't know. It's being labeled as the BMF card. A lot of good fights. Is it a pay-per-view caliber card? Probably not. Main event's cool. It is what it is. It's a fight night. I mean pay-per-view. Anyways, I'm gonna be paying my $75 to Dana White for this card. Definitely. Anyways, folks, before you get into the video, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below for some more UFC and PFL content here on the channel. We are doing additional fight week stuff now on the channel. As we're going to have our UFC 318 best bets later in the week. We did this last week for UFC Nashville. This is more than just money lines. It's parlays. It's over-unders on rounds. It's specific win by finish or type of finish. Check out that video likely on Tuesday here on the channel, potentially Wednesday. Our 5 best bets for UFC 318. And yesterday we posted our UFC Nashville recap video. We went crazy on that UFC Nashville card. 10-2, cash with Derek Lewis as an underdog. Multiple underdogs for us cash last night. So go make sure to check out that video. UFC Nashville review linked in the description down below. Planning on starting to do that every single week if you are interested. So again, check out our UFC Nashville review. Talked about every single one of those fights in depth after the fight happened, obviously. So it's a 50+ minute video. Go make sure to check it out. Main channel, Greedo plays daily. Oh, I forgot PFL Africa. Monday. Yep. Tomorrow, our PFL Africa predictions. Johnny Eblin, Costello Venstinas in the main event. Dakota Dicheva gets to beat up on Sumiko Inaba. That's tomorrow on the channel. Main channel, Greedo plays daily MLB best bets. Okay, go subscribe to both channels. Let's go. First fight of the night. A barn burner in our opener. Carly Judice versus Nicole Kayati. Ooh, what a fight. Carly Judice is from Louisiana. She's from Lafayette, which I believe that's where Dustin's from too. I don't know my Louisiana geography too well, but I believe, yes. Okay, so Dustin's from Lafayette. Judice is from Lafayette. I know for a fact. Definitely DC's from Lafayette because he's got the whole Ragin' Cajun logo on the back of his setup at home in San Jose. But anyways, you've got the Louisiana native and Carly Judice. That's why she's on the card. She's taking on the Brazilian here from Curitiba, Brazil, Nicole Kayati. I'm going Carly Judice to win. This shouldn't come to the surprise of many people here. Carly Judice's last fight was in March of this year. She had beat Eunice Dubois by first round TKO. Caught her with a head kick in the first round. It was fairly easy for Carly Judice, who is a fighter that arguably should have won her first fight in the UFC against Gabriela Fernandez. If you remember, she was like a minus 1,000 favorite against Dubois. You know, and she was 3-2 at the time. Eunice Dubois is not a UFC caliber fighter. Her next fight is Kennedy Freeman. Really? All right. Kennedy Freeman's the Cage Warriors champion, so I mean that should be one-way traffic. Anyways, I think that's happening a couple months. Regardless, not like you're looking forward to that one. Judice is winning this fight, okay? That's as simple as I'm going to leave this one to you. For Kayati, this is a fighter who won the Contender Series against Corinne Laframboise, winning the fight by armbar in the first round. She then proceeded to fight Ernesta Katakate. This is the easiest way to break this down for you. Kayati wins on the ground, Katakate wins on the feet. Carly Judice, is she a better version of Ernesta Karakate? I kind of want to say yes, because Karakate lost to Diane Barbosa, but was good enough to win to keep the fight on the feet enough against Kayati. But Judice just beat Eunice Dubois, but arguably she should have beat Gabriela Fernandez and did a good job stuffing the takedowns out of Gabriela Fernandez, who went 2 for 8 on them against Carly Judice. And on top of that, Carly Judice is fighting at home or in her home state of, Louisiana. And she's younger than Nicole Kayati as well. Yeah, I'm going Carly Judice. Now, again, Kayati, her opportunity is 100% going to be on the ground. And really, this is just a clash of styles. If Judice is able to keep the fight on the feet, she will win. If Kayati is able to take her down, she'll see a lot of success. I'm going to go with the first option. I saw Judice again do all right, at least defensively on her takedowns against Gabriela Fernandez. And Gabriela Fernandez obviously ended up going on to beat Kong Wang, which is something. Wang Kong, excuse me. She's going to fight Julia Stoliarenko next. But yeah, I think Judice is going to be fine here. I think she stuffs the takedowns. Ultimately, I think she out-kickboxes Caliari. I'm going with Lafayette's own Carly Judice to win her second fight in the UFC. I'm going to go with her to win by unanimous decision. I know this is not a very in-depth breakdown of this fight, but I simply just don't care. Okay? Not to be too negative about women's MMA. It's just like, if Caliari takes her down, she'll win. If Judice keeps the fight on the feet, she'll win, okay? I think what's more likely, Judice stuffs the takedowns. Caliari's wrestling is, I don't even think on the level of Gabriela Fernandez personally, so I'm taking Carly Judice to win the fight by decision. She's in Louisiana, she should win. Okay, second fight of the night. Let's move now to a matchup being contested in the middleweight division. Bruno Ferreira takes on Jackson McVey. McVey, finally getting his first shot in the UFC. His debut has been prolonged just a little bit. Originally supposed to make his debut UFC 317. He stepped in on short notice to take on Cedricus Dumas. Dumas, though, couldn't get his ankle monitor off. That's a legitimate thing. So McVey got a new opponent. It was Christopher Ewart. Ewart missed weight by like 8 pounds, so he got cut. McVey, I believe, got his win money, and now he's back on the next pay-per-view here in Louisiana against Bruno Ferreira. Real quickly, you know it's bad when Joe Rogan, who only does American pay-per-views, isn't even showing up to this card. I get it, the card's bad, dude, but it's Dustin Poirier's last fight. You're not showing up for this? Really? Ah, man. Anyways, I guess Rogan's got better things to do, I guess. No, what's better than this, I guess? I don't know. Jackson McVey, Bruno Ferreira. They're throwing Jackson McVey to the wolves here. They are. He's 26 years of age, and honestly, I liked the first two matchups he got at UFC 317, right? I love the Cedricus Dumas matchup for him because just be like, how much is Dumas training? Can't even get his ankle monitor off, you know? And then the Ewart fight, I didn't think Ewart was all that UFC caliber, but now you give him Bruno Ferreira, a guy who in his last fight showed jiu-jitsu and really good jiu-jitsu, right? The Arman Petrosyan fight, Ferreira, and this is how Ferreira is going to fight. And really, the fighting against Petrosyan didn't surprise me too much, at least how it went on the feet. Okay, Petrosyan's out striking Ferreira, but Bruno Ferreira's always just been that guy who's going to rely on his power. He's going to sit back on his shots, and if he's able to land, okay, it's danger. But if he's not able to land, he's only going to pick his shot. So Petrosyan doubled Bruno Ferreira and output in that fight, but ultimately, Ferreira gets an armbar from bottom and eventually gets Petrosyan to tap. So good for Bruno Ferreira, picks up a submission victory. But what the Hulk was known for prior to the Petrosyan fight was striking in the UFC. We look at the Dustin Stoltzfus spinning back elbow knockout back in Louisville, Kentucky in last year in the summer. The Phil Hawes victory in early 2024. The Gregory Rodriguez fight in Brazil, which punched his ticket, well, actually, made his that was his debut in the UFC. He does get chinned in his own right. Look at the Nurulson Ruzbayev fight. Abus took him down and subbed him. But if I can tell you one thing out of a Bruno Ferreira fight, there's likely going to be a finish. Now, Jackson McVey, a guy who's got a 100% finish rate in his own right. He's only had 6 pro fights, but 3 of them have been finished by knockout. 3 of them have been finished by submission. There is, though, and I did pick him to beat both Dumas and Ewart, but there is a lack of experience with McVey. And again, I was fine with that in his first 2 fights, but now you get a guy in Ferreira who's had 6 fights in the UFC. I just think it's too much, and I feel like McVey's going to get chinned here. You look at Bruno Ferreira, this is a minus 645 favorite. Jackson McVey is a plus 450 dog. I'm also taking into consideration this week, guys, this is Dana White's BMF card, which is just their promotion tactic of trying to tell you this card's not that good, but there's entertaining fights. So there's going to be guys who are going to be chasing finishes. They're going to buy into the whole BMF thing. I'm so serious. And guys are going to be looking to go out there and get the job done. Who knows? Maybe Dana's going to up the bonuses this week just because card's weak, but Dana's whole thing is, never judge a book by its cover. These cards are much better. The cards that people say are bad are always the great ones, and sometimes that's the case, but I'm not denying that. It's just we need name value on these cards. But anyways, Bruno Ferreira, I believe, knocks out Jackson McVey quickly in this one. I don't think McVey's on the level of striking of Bruno Ferreira, and McVey does get hit too much for me. And he's never made it out of the first round. Not like Ferreira's a good fighter post-first round either. Just expect a lot of action in the first 5 minutes of this fight. Ultimately, I think those first 5 minutes are won and finished by Bruno Ferreira. That's where I think he wins it. So, again, there's a reason he's a minus 645 favorite. Bruno Ferreira, first round knockout victory over the American Jackson McVey. Okay, on to our third fight of the night. Let's go to the heavyweight division. Ryan Superman Spann takes on Lucas Brzeski. Dare I say, UFC contracts are on the line for both men in this fight. Maybe not Ryan Spann. Maybe he's got a little bit more leeway because he's been a former headliner for the promotion. But Ryan Spann has lost 4 of his last 5 fights, with the only victory being a submission win back in October of last year against old man Ovince St. Preux. Ryan Spann's coming off his first loss in the heavyweight division and first fight in the heavyweight division, where he got Waldo Cortez Acosta. I guess Waldo's a top 6 heavyweight now, and Derek Lewis just called him out after Waldo called Derek Lewis out. I mean, I saw that one coming. I picked Waldo to beat Ryan Spann pretty handedly, and that's obviously what happened. A lot of light heavyweights are going to see success at heavyweight. But this is crazy to say now, and I didn't think we were ever going to get to this. Waldo Cortez Acosta is a somewhat high-level heavyweight. So light heavyweights, you know, guys like Ryan Spann and guys like Vitor Prachnio, I don't think right away they can go in and beat Waldo Cortez Acosta. They're going to need wins, obviously, to get into a top 6 fight like that. So again, since that victory for Cortez Acosta against Spann, he goes on to beat one Sergey Spivak to get into the top 6. I'm not too down on Spann because of that loss. I am okay, here. I don't think his chin's good, and I don't think he's well equipped to fight at heavyweight with this chin. But against lower level heavyweight guys, yes, he will win. Lucas Brzeski might be one of the lowest level UFC heavyweights you can find. He's 9-6-1. He's 1-5 in the UFC, and somehow his only victory is Valter Walker, who's going to be in the top 15 now. How the hell does that work? I don't know. Brzeski's losses are Martin Budaj in a fight arguably Brzeski should have won, Carl Williams, Waldo Cortez Acosta, win over Walker, lost to Mick Parkin, and then a knockout loss in his last fight at UFC 310 against Kendi Nzechukwu. Ryan Spann's likely knocking out Brzeski in the first round. Again, I think it was just a tough matchup for Ryan Spann against Waldo. Waldo's in the top 6. That shouldn't really be held against Ryan Spann all that much. Again, Brzeski's a 9-6-1 fighter, and sure, arguably he should be 2-4 in the UFC, but even that, if he's 2-4 in the UFC, you're not thinking that he's high caliber at all. I don't even know how he's still in the promotion at 1-5. That's crazy. So again, I think the UFC knows what they're doing. They're not stupid, right? You can't fix fights, but you can match-make fights to the best of your ability. This is one of those fights. They see Ryan Spann, they see Lucas Brzeski. Okay, we kind of like Ryan Spann. He's made event cards for us in the past. We want to keep him around at the top of a weight, or just in the UFC, even though they're paying him quite a bit. But still, he's a name value. He's headlined before. We want him around. We're going to give him the lowest caliber guy and lowest level guy so we can go out there and actually get a finish at 265 pounds. Ryan Spann's going to do exactly that to Lucas Brzeski. I am very scared about Spann's chin at 265 pounds, as was apparent in the Waldo Cortez Acosta fight. However, Lucas Brzeski doesn't throw hard. He is a volume guy at 265. Andrei Arlovsky would be proud. That's literally what Brzeski is. He's just going to overwhelm you with volume, and he's going to try to break you. It's not really the type of guy that beats Ryan Spann, even though Anthony Smith did beat Ryan Spann twice. That's besides the point. Ryan Spann's got more power here. Ryan Spann should be able to sit down in his punches. Both these guys have only won 1 fight in their last 5, which is really bad. Brzeski's shown me nothing, though, so far in his UFC career to tell me he's a UFC fighter, with the exception of the Walker victory, but that was Valter's first fight in the promotion, so I'll give him a little bit of, leeway there. I'm going Ryan Superman Spann to knock out Lucas Brzeski in the first round here. I'm on the early prelims here in NOLA. Let's go on to our 4th fight of the night. A bunch of guys, or 2 guys here, who still are looking for victories as well. I mean, they've won in the UFC, but recently these fights haven't been too kind to them. Marcin Prachnio, a loser in 2 of his last 3 fights. Jimmy Crute has not been a winner in any of his last 5 bouts. He's drawed in 2 of them, though, which is odd, but it is what it is. I'm going... I was going to go Jimmy Crute going into this one. I still think I am. Jimmy Crute doesn't want to fight, though, since 2020. Guys want to fight in 5 years. Ugh. Marcin Prachnio, 17-8 professionally, 4-6 if I'm not mistaken in the UFC. Coming off a loss to Modestas Bukauskas, in which he gets subbed in the 3rd round, UFC 304. That's about a year ago now. Was supposed to take on Jimmy Crute in February. Fight didn't happen. Prachnio withdrew from that one, so Jimmy Crute ended up getting Adolfo Bellato instead. That fight was a majority decision. It's just my thing about Jimmy Crute. He's been on the wrong end of so many fights. His last win, again, so both these fighters' last wins are Modestas Bukauskas. But to put something on this, okay, put perspective with this fight, okay, guys? Jimmy Crute's win over Modestas Bukauskas was in Modestas Bukauskas' first stint in the UFC. This guy left the UFC, got cut, went to Cage Warriors, won a couple fights there, and then came back and eventually, fought Marcin Prachnio in July of last year and lost. But both these guys, okay, so Prachnio lost to Bukauskas. But anyways, hear me out, okay? These two guys, Crute's last win is over first stint Modestas Bukauskas. Marcin Prachnio's last fight is against second stint Modestas Bukauskas. Just shows you how long Crute's been losing. He was booked to open up the main card at UFC 261 in Jacksonville, the first card back with the crowd. He was supposed to slaughter Anthony Smith, and he got his legs kicked out from beneath him. He loses the fight by first round TKO. Then he fights Jamal Hill. Hill knocks him out. Alonzo Menafield, draw. Then fights Alonzo Menafield again, loses. Fights Rodolfo Bellato, draw. Arguably could have won, but I get why it was a draw. Now him and Marcin Prachnio are going to go at it. I mean, if Crute can't win this one, it's more than over, right? The career is done if Marcin Prachnio is not able to win this fight. Jimmy Crute's not able to win this fight. I think he's going to, though, just because Prachnio's not that good. I mean, Crute's not either, but Jimmy Crute's been trying to wrestle a lot recently, and it hasn't always gone his way. And I guess Jimmy Crute's always done that. Like, look at the Michal Zolshashek fight. That's all the way back in February of 2020 now. But when Crute is going to get into trouble on the feet and he's not liking what he's seeing on the feet, he does switch it up. He will look to change levels and he will look to grapple. I think that's what's going to happen here. I think he's going to grapple Marcin Prachnio. And I look at what Prachnio's done in his last couple fights. Well, Bukauskas subbed him. Vettori Petrino subbed him. How did Felipe Lins beat him back in 2022? Well, Lins took him down and held him down. Prachnio's only wins in last, his last three wins are Devin Clark, Will Knight, and Ike Villanueva. And then, of course, there's a Khalil Roundtree Jr. win back in January of 2021 thrown in there as well that Prachnio saved his career with. But I think Jimmy the Brute Crute's going to win this one. He's been on the wrong end of a lot of decisions and a lot of close fights as well, right? With those draws. Hell, out of his last 5 fights, 3 of them have been losses, but 2 of them have been draws. I think Prachnio is going to lose here because I believe Crute's going to be able to get him down. We've seen, Prachnio opponents time in and time out be able to find the takedowns and be able to ground Prachnio in there. I don't think this fight's any different. I think Jimmy Crute finally gets back on the winning ways. And another big thing in this fight, too, Jimmy Crute's 29 years of age. Marcin Prachnio's 37. I'm going with the fighter that's 8 years younger. To be Jimmy Crute to finally get back in the win column. Do not bet this fight, but I'm going Jimmy Crute by unanimous decision. Next up, we go to the welterweight division. We've got a matchup here between Adam Fugitt and Islam Dulatov. Dulatov might be the biggest favorite on this entire card, not just in terms of odds. Well, he might be at minus 625. But on Tapology as well, I know that doesn't mean the whole story, but 96% of voters are going with Islam Dulatov to win the fight. 4% of voters are going with Adam Fugitt. Okay, we're going to break this fight down and give it a fair shot, obviously. Let's go with the German here, training out of Dusseldorf, Germany, Islam Dulatov. From Chechnya, but now again training out of Germany. This is a guy who is making his UFC debut. Originally supposed to fight Fugitt in February of this year. Dulatov pulls out. Fugitt then is supposed to fight Billy Ray Goff. Fugitt pulls out of that fight, and then now here he is rescheduled against Dulatov. But Dulatov is coming off a win in the Contender Series where he beat Benito Antunes by first round knockout. Dulatov looks good in that fight. He is a pretty sizable favorite in that fight. He's a minus 700 favorite. Again, there has been hype around Dulatov for quite a bit now. He's 26 years of age. He's a guy who hits with a lot of force. He's a heavy hitter, and he can wrestle you as well. Dulatov on paper is supposed to be a lot of trouble. And this is the perfect entry-level fight for him in the UFC. Adam Fugitt. 2-2 in the promotion, but his victories are Yusaku Kinoshita and Josh Quinlan. 2 fighters who are no longer in the UFC. His losses are 2 guys who are honestly, were kind of in similar spots as Islam Dulatov is in now. Michael Morales back in 2022. He beats Adam Fugitt in the 3rd round. I believe that was Morales' debut. And Mike Malott back in Canada. Okay, they wanted to get Morales going on UFC 272 because they wanted to get their prospect over. And, well, it's worked. Morales is in the top 8. And they wanted to get Mike Malott going. Didn't entirely work like Morales did, but Malott wins in his home country. Islam Dulatov's not in his home country, but the same kind of trend here, okay? Fugitt on fight nights is 2-0 against Kinoshita and Quinlan. On pay-per-views, he loses to Morales and Malott. Here he goes. Now he's taking on Dulatov on a pay-per-view. The UFC wants Dulatov to establish a name with this fight. Again, they're calling it the BMF card. They know if Dulatov goes out here and gets a quick finish over Adam Fugitt, there is going to be hype around the guy. Again, he is a Chechenian who's now training at Dusseldorf, Germany. Does that strike a bell to you? Abus Magomedov. Not Abus was specifically from Dagestan, but kind of close. They both went to Dusseldorf. Anyways, right? Again, this is a guy in Islam who can grapple. He's got the sambo, but at the same time, right, when these Russians go to Germany, like Abus Magomedov, they've got the wrestling background, and oh, by the way, now they learn German kickboxing. It's trouble, right? Adam Fugitt is a 36-year-old fighter. He's not getting any younger. He's 2-2 in the UFC. You and I both know what this is. He is getting thrown out there to lose. Islam Dulatov has a 100% finish rate, 6 knockouts, 5 submissions. His one loss was in his first ever professional MMA bout back in September of 2019. He lost it by unanimous decision. Since then, he's won 11 straight fights again. None of them have seen the final horn. None of them have gone past a round either, which is a little bit of a concern. Like, what happens when Dulatov, what happens when he goes past that first round? I don't think that's really something we're gonna have to worry about here, just because it's Adam Fugitt, and when Fugitt gets put in these opportunities, he loses. But in all fairness, Malott took him to the second. Michael Morales took him to the third. The difference between this fight, though, and those fights is that Fugitt was 34 and 33, respectively, in those 2 fights. He's now 36. Your chin's just at a whole different level now. And Islam Dulatov should make short work of Adam Fugitt here on this undercard fight. I'm going with Dulatov here by first-round knockout against Adam Fugitt. Another one of these fights where it kind of seems like they're throwing a certain guy into the wolves. Robert Valentin, I am sorry. Atiba Gautier, I've been trying to say this for a little bit. Since I saw Gautier fight in the Contender Series, even prior to the Contender Series, I remember he was fighting Yura Naito, and we picked Gautier to win. I've been on Gautier. The guy is a physical specimen. I remember when he was, I don't know what the odds were on the Naito fight. Yeah, he was an underdog against Yura Naito, and nothing against Yura Naito, but I looked at those two guys, and I didn't even need to watch film, and then I did watch some of Gautier, the limited film I could see on the guy, but I just looked at the two fighters, and I'm like, okay, you're telling me this guy's gonna lose to, no disrespect, Yura Naito, who is he was an undefeated, I believe, Japanese prospect, but hadn't fought anybody, and didn't look like Atiba Gautier. This guy's going places, okay? He's 23 years of age. He's 6'4" at 185 pounds. His final weight class is going to be 205, potentially even heavyweight, right? I mean, it's the whole thing, right? Chase Hooper, when he came to the UFC at such a young age, his body is still growing. He's obviously moving up. Now he's at 155 pounds, so probably in his career at 170, I would assume. Max Holloway, right? Used to be a 145-pounder, now a 155-pounder. Look at Raul Rosas. Raul Rosas is not going to end his career at 135. He'll likely finish the 145er or a 155-pounder. Same thing can be said about Atiba Gautier. Gautier eventually is going to get sick of cutting this weight, and he's going to go up to 205 pounds. I get it's a big jump, but you're 23 years of age. You're still very young. Did Jana say this about him or Josiah Harrell? I believe it was, I think it was Gautier where Dana said this about. Not Josiah Harrell. Oh my goodness, definitely not Josiah Harrell. I'm blanking on his name. I'm so sorry. Guy from the Congo. Oh, I thought his name was Josiah something. It's not Josiah Harrell. Anyways, I believe Dana said this about Atiba Gautier. When he got the contract and he beat Naito, Dana said, we just need to get this guy, we just need to see this guy, get him on a real camp. He's fighting out of Cameroon, doesn't really have a real camp. Once we get him in the PI, he's going to be much better. Well, here we go. Josiah Musasa. Oh, guys, his first name is Josiah. He lost his first fight in the UFC back at the Apex. Anyways, that's besides the point. Those are the two guys from Africa that got contracts from the Contender last year. Gautier is much better than Musasa is, though, and it's really not even close. Gautier hits like a truck, okay? And I know, he beat Jose Daniel Medina in his last fight, but Jose Medina is just one of those guys who has a iron chin that you just can't crack. This is the truth. I mean, Dana said this himself. Mexican fighters or fighters just from South America or just from, down south, they're hard to crack. Hispanic fighters are hard to knock out. They have iron chins. That's just how they are. We saw Jose Medina eat so much damage early in his UFC run against Zach Reese in the contender against Magomed Gaziasulov. Atiba Gautier puts him out in the first 3 minutes of the fight. The guy hits really hard. He hits really hard. Robert Valentin is being thrown out here to get knocked out. He's had 2 fights in the UFC. He's lost both of those fights. Went 2-0 in the Ultimate Fighter, beating Giannis Bashar and Paddy McCrory. Then gets the Ultimate Fighter finale fight, loses to Ryan Loder, fights Torres Finney, loses by split decision in one of the most boring fights you're ever going to watch. I thought Torres Finney actually won. Yeah, I thought Torres Finney won. I know, again, I champion the whole, you gotta do damage to win fights. It's not like Robert Valentin did anything at the same time. I'm just gonna be honest. I thought Wonder Boy beat Gabriel Bonfim, but I also still thought Torres Finney beat Robert Valentin. Just because, Torres Finney literally had rounds where he didn't land strikes. Or Robert Valentin, his 2 strikes are gonna win you the round? Come on now. He didn't do damage with the 2 strikes. So in that case, yes, the 13 minutes of control probably wins you the fight. Not like I am defending it. I'm just saying, I'd probably score it for Finney. Anyways, Robert Valentin goes from getting, a boring wrestler, and that's what Torres Finney ultimately, I guess, has become. I don't know. We'll see what his next fight is. To Atiba Gautier, who's going to try to knock your head off. Ooh, have fun with that. Have fun with that. Now, Valentin, in all fairness, hasn't been able just to fight a straight stand-up fight yet in the UFC, right? Ultimate Fighter, he's able to do that against, I believe, Bashar, right? Yeah, he knocked out Bashar in 20 seconds. And again, how much of a stand-up fight is that? I don't know, right? Obviously, it's 20 seconds. But Ryan Loder took him down, got the submission or got the TKO with the elbows. Torres Finney was constantly grappling Robert Valentin. The problem for Valentin is, though, you're getting a striker who keeps on evolving in his game, hits like a damn truck, like a Ford Escort, and is only getting better. It's a tough matchup, man. It really is. Valentin's 30, but again, Gautier is 23. I don't know. The UFC knows what they're doing. They put Dulatov on this card. He's an up-and-coming prospect. They want people to know, right? They put, they're putting Atiba Gautier on this card because they want people to know who this is as well. He's 23, and he's about to get another knockout, I think. And I think this is going to be a highlight reel knockout. Unfortunately for Robert Valentin, right, he's just being thrown into the wolves. Gautier is a minus 550 favorite in this fight. 93% of voters on Tapology are going with Gautier as well. I am siding with him as well. Give me the Cameroonian to win by first round knockout. I am all in right now on Atiba Gautier. I'm not telling you he's going to be a future champion. He's still got a long way to go. But this is a very good up-and-coming prospect who is just a freak of nature. Give me Atiba Gautier by first round knockout. The UFC, again, they need to give him good matchups coming up. We'll see. He'll try to become the second Cameroonian UFC champion someday, maybe. I don't know. Again, right? Francis Ngannou the first, even though the UFC's kind of just erased him from their history. Anyways, on to our next fight. We go to a matchup here, which I don't actually know how this made the pay-per-view card. With all due respect, Francisco Prado and Nikolai Veretennikov. I was surprised Veretennikov is still in the UFC. Veretennikov's last fight in Seattle, Washington against Austin Vanderford. By the way, where is Vanderford? He won his first fight in the UFC and hasn't been seen since. Maybe he's still behind the camera for his wife's OnlyFans. But I digress. Nikolai Veretennikov, his first fight in the UFC, loses a pretty boring fight to Danny Barlow. I like Barlow, but God, that fight was bad. Barlow just lost his last fight too, got knocked out by Sam Patterson. Yikes. Anyways, Veretennikov loses to Danny Barlow, then runs into Austin Vanderford. Vanderford dominates Veretennikov. Veretennikov has got no answers for Vanderford in that fight. Vanderford gets the legs, gets the takedown, and just grinds that fight out and ends up again winning by TKO due to ground and pound against Nikolai Veretennikov. After the fight's over, Vanderford, obviously, referee Kevin McDonald, declares Vanderford the winner. He, gets him off of Veretennikov. Vanderford puts his arms up in the air, and Veretennikov pushes him from behind. Okay. I immediately think Paul Daly, Josh Koscheck, but, it's not to the same extent. Obviously, Paul Daly just, tried to knock out Josh Koscheck, and, Dan Mergliato was right there for that. But anyways, different circumstance. Dana's response was, well, it's the fight game. You want things to be pretty? I guess, So Veretennikov has been afforded a third fight in the UFC against one Francisco Prado, who's been just disappointing. He's 23, but you're kind of hoping he'd have a better record at this point in time than 1-3. Now, I was never the highest on Prado as a prospect. He hadn't fought anybody in the regional scene. He's coming from Samurai Fight House. But when you get a guy into the UFC in which he was brought in at about 21, you're expecting, okay, we get a 21-year-old. He's an undefeated guy. You take your time with him, and maybe he becomes something. Well, he's 1-3 after his first 4 fights. Losses to Jamie Mullarkey, Daniel Zellhuber, and Jake Matthews. The only victory being Atman Azaitar, who's more than washed at this point of his career. I feel like they're kind of throwing Prado a bone here with Veretennikov. At the same time, though, Nikolai is going to be able to get to fight the type of fight he wants to fight too. I don't expect any grappling in this fight, and I guess this kind of fits the whole BMF thing right now. Both these guys are going to be able to strike against each other. Prado, not that big of a takedown threat. He's landed 1 takedown in his entire UFC run. Even though he went for it against Jake Matthews, but he was going for the takedown against Jake Matthews because he was just getting beat on the feet. I don't think Prado's going to get into a spot in this fight with Veretennikov where he feels like, okay, I'm in danger here. I'm losing, so I need to switch it up. I just don't see that happening. I personally think Prado's going to see a lot of success in the feet against Nikolai Veretennikov. Veretennikov's not going to try to take down Prado. That's just not what he does. So we're going to see a stand-up fight. Who's going to get the better of it? I believe it's going to be the Argentinian fighter training out of ATT in Coconut Creek, Florida. I believe it's going to be Francisco Prado, being the King's MMA product out of Orange County, California. I also like both these guys. I saw Veretennikov fight a boring fight against Danny Barlow. I get it. Barlow can be a tough guy to fight just because, he's a long, lanky guy similar to Veretennikov who does hit hard. But that, again, both those guys, it's just, I guess their builds just kind of, it's an odd way of putting it, but I guess just both of these guys' frames in the Veretennikov-Barlow fight kind of just cancel each other out because they're both, they had range on each other. They're both really unwilling to really just let go in that fight. Parado's going to be the smaller fighter, right? Veretennikov will have 5 inches of reach in this one, but ultimately, I do think Prado's able to get inside in this fight. I do think Prado is able to tee off, and I think another added factor has to be, okay, if Prado is seeing himself in some danger, he can always mix it up and go to the grappling, which is going to take me away from picking Prado by knockout, because there is a chance, right, that Prado does just go to the game plan that he looked to in the Jake Matthews fight, where he's competitive on the feet, but he's losing, so he does go to the takedown, and he tries for it quite a bit, right? Again, he attempted 6 takedowns against Matthews in his last bout. So we know it's there for Prado. Veretennikov, I just saw him get dominated by Austin Vanderford, and I get it, that's all Vanderford does. He is a really good wrestler who can give you problems. I think both pathways are there for Prado, and that's ultimately why I think Prado is going to win, because, right, there are just multiple pathways for him to win the fight. I'm not going to pick by finish again because of that possibility, and there's always a chance we just see a striking fight that goes the full 15. So I'm going to go with the Argentinian here in Francisco Prado to beat Nikolai Veretennikov. I believe he gets it done by unanimous decision, and that will then send Veretennikov out of the UFC. See you later. On to our next fight here, not our featured prelim, which is kind of crazy. It's finally happening. Marvin Vettori, Brendan Allen. This is a fight that actually has been building for quite a bit. They had that whole brawl. They fought at a PFL card at the Hard Rock in Hollywood, Florida, I believe, or was it at the Mohegan Sun? One of the two. One of the PFL locations. They had a whole, scrap in a casino. They finally got booked together, and here we go. Brendan Allen is fighting in his home state of Louisiana. He's from Covington, Louisiana. I don't know where that is in relation to New Orleans. And they sent these dudes to the prelims. Wow. And Michael Johnson, Daniel Zellhuber's on the main card. Honestly, I'm not against it because, okay, hey, this has the real possibility to be really boring. It just does. Okay, Marvin Vettori hasn't won a fight since March of 2023. It was always odd, by the way, that he got booked again against Roman Dolidze. And Brendan Allen hasn't won a fight since April of 2024 against Chris Curtis. So but also he didn't win that fight. That was a robbery. So really, Brendan Allen hasn't won a fight since November of 2023. So yeah, when you think about it, okay, it makes sense why this one is on the undercard. I am surprised Allen's such a big favorite. Minus 265 feels kind of crazy for me for Brendan Allen. A guy who just got dog walked on the ground on the ground in his last fight. Fluffy Hernandez dominates the guy on the mat. Fluffy's got like 13 minutes of control time in that one. Brendan Allen literally does nothing in Seattle against Alexander Hernandez. He's been given back-to-back 3-round co-main event spots, and he has fallen short in both of them. got a fight in France against Nasruddin Imavov. It's just such an uneventful fight. Brendan Allen wins the first with a takedown. Second round, Imavov wins. Third round, Imavov outstrikes Allen. So uneventful. Really like the Anthony Hernandez fight, which is a shame because the Brendan Allen Chris Curtis 5-round main event in the Apex was really good. You just don't remember it because it's an Apex fight, right? Brendan Allen went on his big run where he, was stacking submissions, 4 straight rear naked choke finishes over Christoph Jotko, Andrea Muniz, Bruno Silva, and Paul Craig. But now here he is, a loser in back-to-back fights, and he gets the Italian dream Marvin Vettori, who's still only 31 years of age, but now is staring down the barrel of potentially 3 straight losses after taking career-altering damage in the Jared Cannonier fight back in June of 2023, and his last loss just a couple months ago against Roman Dolidze in a 5-round main event. A result that a lot of people found very surprising, myself included. Vettori looked slow in that fight. He looked hesitant to pull the trigger. Dolidze was getting to him before Vettori was able to throw back. What do we get now here in a Brendan Allen fight? I don't know. Because is Brendan Allen going to take Marvin Vettori down? Maybe. We saw Jared Cannonier do it a little bit. And obviously that wasn't the reason Jared won the fight. But here's the thing, guys. I am yet to see Marvin Vettori lose a fight because of grappling. He's only lost fights because he's been outstruck. Izzy, twice. Whitaker, Cannonier, Dolidze. I guess the shoe face fight. But that's back in, that was, last time Vettori got out grappled to lose a fight was when Ronda Rousey was still an active UFC fighter. So I don't care about that, okay? So it actually has been a while, though, since Vettori's been strictly and purely just out grappled. I don't think Brendan Allen's actually that guy to do that, though. Well, this guy just got out grappled in back-to-back. The Imavov fight didn't really get out grappled. He got dominated on the ground by Anthony Hernandez. Dominated. Now, again, does that apply to Vettori? Not entirely. Hear me out, guys, and this is why I think this is on the undercard. I believe the grappling game for both guys is going to cancel out. We're going to see, it's a grudge match. We're going to see a striking fight. Neither guy is going to be able to land a takedown or at least hold positioning once they get a takedown. So then we just see both these guys in the octagon kind of staring at each other, and they're just going to strike the entire time. I can't believe I'm saying this. I believe that favors Brendan Allen. Yep, I think it does. Allen's at home in Louisiana. So if there is a close decision, we don't get many fights in Louisiana. If it's close, it's going to Brendan Allen. Maybe Brendan Allen's uncle's one of the judges, right? You never know. He got outstruck by Chris Curtis, though, man. Curtis is good, but oh, brother. I didn't like that last Vettori fight, man. You're getting outstruck by Roman Dolidze, who got outstruck by Imavov, and Dolidze's whole thing, his entire career has been, okay, he can land one punch, he throws really hard, he'll throw the spinning back elbow at times, but not a guy who's going to outclass you for 15 minutes or 25 minutes. I just didn't like it out of Vettori. There's not going to be a finish here, especially by knockout, right? Vettori doesn't get knocked out. He's got the best chin in the world. I'm so serious. You could have him fight Ngannou and probably survive. I don't think we see a submission, though. I highly doubt that. I just think Brendan Allen wins a boring decision. I wouldn't bet it. I think there is value for Vettori. Personally, again, when I look at these fights and I predict these fights, I don't pick them because of value. If you want our full value video, it's going to be our best bets video later in the week, where I strictly just talk value and look for betting lines. But here I'm picking straight winners. I am going to slightly go with the Brendan Allen. I, again, would not touch it in the slightest. I wouldn't bet on it at all. If anything, I'd bet the over rounds. If it's anywhat playable at 2.5, I highly doubt it is. So I'm going to go with the Louisianan, if that's a term. By decision, I think he just does enough. I think we see a boring striking bout that Allen just edges out. This doesn't scream to me BMF at all. It's just a grudge match. And, like Mohamed Mokaev versus Manel Kape, I feel like the grudge match is going to be somewhat underwhelming. I think the most action and the most excitement we're going to get out this little rivalry comes from their PFL brawl a couple years ago. So I'm going with Brendan Allen to find a decision victory over Marvin Vettori. Vettori post-Cannonier fight, I just don't think it's the same. I get he's only had one fight, but you lost to Roman Dolidze. Guys, something happens to a fighter after you take that much damage. It was an ungodly amount of damage that Jared Cannonier put on Marvin Vettori in the Apex back in June of 23. I mean, seriously, those are the type of fights that change your career. That's kind of where I'm heading with this. I'm going Brendan Allen Allen by unanimous decision. On to our next one, we move to a matchup in the bantamweight division. Kyler Phillips takes on Lock Dog Vinicius Oliveira. Good fight to ranked... is Kyler Phillips ranked? I guess actually Oliveira's probably not ranked either. Two guys who are close to the rankings. I'm not sure if either of these guys are ranked, actually. I think Oliveira should be ranked, personally. But anyways, it's a fight within the top 20-ish of the weight class. I'm going to check the rankings right now. Kyler Phillips is ranked 12th, and Oliveira is ranked 15th. So yes, a top 15 matchup in the bantamweight division. It is the featured bout, obviously, on the prelims, and it's a good one. Vinicius Oliveira, undefeated in the UFC. He is a perfect 3-0. The crazy firefight that he had against Bernardo Sopaj in the Apex back of March of 2024, winning the fight via flying knee with 20 seconds to go. The huge victory on an international fight week in 2024 against Ricky Simón, and he's coming off a victory over Said Nurmagomedov by unanimous decision earlier in the year. A huge victory for Vinicius Oliveira, one, by the way, that we called. We have hopped on the Vinicius Oliveira bandwagon, or I guess hype train, after that victory or prior to the Said Nurmagomedov fight, and now he gets Kyler Phillips, who... I'll just be straight up honest with you guys. I've never seen it with Kyler Phillips. I never have. I've never gotten the hype. And maybe someone can explain to me the hype for Kyler Phillips. You know, maybe it's just because, oh, he's, you know, Sean O'Malley's guy. I believe. Or at least I know I believe they're boys. They're both MMA Lab guys, obviously, out of Phoenix. But I've never gotten the hype on Kyler Phillips. Like, I've watched Kyler Phillips' entire career, and I've picked him, you know, a fair amount, but he lost to Raulian Paiva by majority decision. You know, Raulian Paiva in 2021. His best win, okay, he has the Song Yadong victory. But you take away the Song Yadong win, and what has Kyler Phillips done to honestly even deserve a ranking? And did he really beat Song Yadong? Rewatch the fight. Seriously, I think Song wins 2 and 3. And a lot of people at the time thought Song Yadong should have won the fight as well. So, okay, so you give him the win, whatever. You give him the Song Yadong victory, you lose to Raulian Paiva. His next 3 fights, he beats Marcelo Rojo, who's not UFC level, beats Raoni Barcelos, which actually is surprisingly aging very well, and then he beats an old Pedro Munoz. But he just lost to Rob Font by unanimous decision. In the Apex, it was a fight that, you know, we going into it, it was like, all right, well, you know, Rob Font's supposed to get got here. They're trying to do away with Rob Font, you know, new age in, old age out. So let's get Kyler Phillips a win. Well, Kyler Phillips, you know, wets the bed, doesn't win, out grapples Rob Font in the first round, but then proceeds to get outstruck in the second and third rounds, ultimately losing a 2-1 unanimous decision. Okay, if you're losing to Rob Font, you're not going to beat Vinicius Oliveira, though. Okay, this is a guy who's got great takedown defense. Ricky Simón is a more than capable wrestler. Ricky Simón went 2 for 11 on takedowns against Vinicius Oliveira. And ultimately, Oliveira was able to keep the fight on the feet and outstrike Ricky Simón to a unanimous decision, winning every single round and picking up the biggest win of his career at that time back at UFC 303. So you're not going to out-grapple this guy. Said Nurmagomedov, by the way, got completely out-grappled by Vinicius Oliveira. Oliveira was the aggressor in takedowns. He was the one on top. Oliveira went 3 for 5 on his takedowns in that fight, and Said went 1 for 9. So, and actually, Said was outstriking Vinicius in that fight, but it doesn't matter, right? Oliveira is winning in the grappling exchanges. On the feet, I don't know who wins. Kyler Phillips just got teed off on against Rob Font. And sure, on the flip side, Kyler Phillips looked really good striking against 40-year-old Pedro Munoz. You know, I think Oliveira is a more than capable striker. My thing with him is that he does get hit too much for my liking. Like, even you look back at the Sopaj fight. Bernardo Sopaj takes that fight on short notice, and he's landing on Vinicius Oliveira. Sopaj wins the first round. Arguably could have won the second, too. I don't know how you score that. It's a very competitive second round. Third round, obviously, Oliveira is just running away with it because Sopaj, right, took the fight on short notice, wasn't really ready to fight a hard 15 minutes. And eventually, right, Oliveira gets the flying knee knockout at the end of the third round. But on the feet, I don't know where this fight goes. On the ground, I actually think it's really obvious Vinicius Oliveira. On the feet, I just don't know. I think Vinicius Oliveira wins the fight by decision. Kyler Phillips is a tough guy to put away. He's never been finished in his career. Oliveira has 16 knockout wins, don't get me wrong, but he's coming off back-to-back decision wins in his own right. I think he beats Kyler Phillips. I think we see a mix of grappling and striking here. I think Oliveira does just enough. I think on the feet they're competitive. I think Oliveira is going to switch it up a little bit with the grappling because, okay, he looks at that last fight that Rob Font had against Kyler Phillips. That's how Font ultimately turns the tide in that fight in the Apex last fall. So if it's needed for Vinicius Oliveira, that's there. On the feet, again, I think they're competitive, but ultimately I think Oliveira is slightly better. So I'm going to go with lock dog Vinicius Oliveira to win this fight, the biggest fight of his career. He gets it done against Caliari Phillips. This is a top 12 bantamweight in the UFC. Vinicius Oliveira gets it done by unanimous decision. He's a fun fighter. He is a guy who's going to push a pace. Watch out for him in the division. Again, a fun guy to have. He's going to beat Caliari Phillips, who, again, I've never just gotten the hype on Caliari Phillips. Maybe I'm wrong here, because I've picked Caliari Phillips quite a bit. I can look at my past on Caliari Phillips. I've taken Caliari Phillips in his last 5 fights. I'm pretty sure I took Song Yadong to beat him. But I haven't picked against Caliari Phillips since 2021. I'm doing it now. I'm yet to see it. He's been given good matchups too. This is not a good matchup. Give me Vinicius Oliveira. Okay, on to the main card. We have a main card opener in the big 2025 of Michael Johnson and Daniel Zellhuber. What? It's gonna be fun until it's over, I guess. Sure. I don't know. I mean, I guess. Michael Johnson's 39. I respect it. Legend of the sport. He has 15 wins in the UFC. 15 men have tried. 30 men have tried to beat Michael Johnson in the UFC octagon. 15 men have failed, right? Michael Johnson is a UFC vet. He's not a Hall of Famer, but I mean, he's fought some great guys. He's fought Khabib. He's fought Nate Diaz. He's fought Dustin Poirier. He actually beat Dustin Poirier. He beat, who else? Who was the other really good fighter he beat? I'm blanking. Was it just Dustin? Oh, Edson Barbosa he beat too. And Tony Ferguson, right? Michael Johnson's got some really good wins, some really great wins. He's 39 now, though, but he is coming off winning 3 of 4. I'll take you back to December of 2022. He picks up a unanimous decision victory over Mark DeCasey, loses to Carlos Diego Ferreira, where he gets knocked out and stiffed like a board, like knocked out completely cold against CDF. Comes back, though, beats Darius Flowers, and then he flatlines and completely stiffs Otman Azaitar in his last fight back in Tampa in December of 2024. So Michael Johnson's now been a winner in three of his last 4 fights, and the UFC says, okay, we're going to give you a pay-per-view fight right on. Go take on a guy who fights absolute firefights in Daniel Zellhuber. Oh my goodness, this is danger. They know what they're doing. This is Atiba Gautier, Robert Valentin. This is Islam Dulatov versus Adam Fugitt. This is just on a pay-per-view card where it's going to have the most eyes possible. People know Michael Johnson is, he's fought Khabib. He's beat Poirier. He's beat Tony. He's beat Barbosa. Let's get Daniel Zellhuber to knock him out in the first round. That's what I believe is going to happen here. Zellhuber is yet to actually get a knockout win in the UFC. Not like he doesn't try to go for it, though. Right? Zellhuber's always pursuing that knockout. He hasn't gotten it, but his last 3 fights have been pretty good. So I'll take you back to UFC No Chain number 1, where he beats Christos Giagos by submission in the second round. Then proceeds to fight in Mexico City against Francisco Prado. Tremendous fight. Talked about Prado earlier in the card. Zellhuber and Prado go back and forth. Wins fight of the night. Zellhuber gets the better end of that fight. And Zellhuber's last fight against Esteban Ribovic, the best fight at the Sphere last year. Ribovic wins an absolute classic. Where I actually thought Zellhuber probably should have won. Ribovic has a tremendous third round. Kind of thought Zellhuber won the first 2 personally. But it's a tremendous fight. Great fight. One of the best fights of the year. Best fight at the Sphere. Burned the house down. And now Zellhuber gets rewarded with another main card spot, which I understand. And again, I completely just understand the circumstances around this fight. Michael Johnson's 39. He's got a name. They want to promote Daniel Zellhuber. In a perfect world, they want Daniel Zellhuber to win quickly against Michael Johnson so they can turn him around for Noche in a couple months in San Antonio. That's, I think, the plan here. He's knocking out Michael Johnson in the first round. I commend what Michael Johnson's done, knocking out Otman Azaitar, who's more washed than Hakeem Olajuwon on the Toronto Raptors. You know, I applaud him for out-grappling and out-striking Darius Flowers and beating Mark DeCasey as well, right? Stopping the DeCasey takedowns and winning a striking battle. He has not seen the power of someone like Daniel Zellhuber in a minute. Well, okay, let me correct myself. Not the power, but the all-around just striking game. He's in your face, he's always throwing something, and he's not going to stop until either he is knocked out, you are knocked out, or the final 15-minute horn sounds. I just don't think Michael Johnson's able to take 15 minutes of damage against Daniel Zellhuber. And honestly, I don't think he's able to take 5 minutes of damage against Daniel Zellhuber. I believe Zellhuber is going to be pedal to the metal this entire fight. It is going to be go, 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 and go some more for Daniel Zellhuber in this one. And ultimately, I just don't think Michael Johnson's going to be able to take it. Okay? I'm taking Daniel Zellhuber to knock out Michael Johnson in the first. I think the menace just is not able to respond. I saw Carlos Diego Ferreira stiff him like a board back in 2023. And sure, the menace has won 2 in a row, but against Darius Flowers and Otman Azaitar, the UFC, for the most part, has protected Michael Johnson with either veteran booking against, again, right, other vets of the sport, or just prospects who aren't that high level. They said enough of that now. Go fight Daniel Zellhuber. Yikes. Zellhuber by first round knockout. Let's go on to our next fight in the featherweight division. It is the second UFC fight for Patricio Pittbull. He takes on Dan 50K Ige here. Interesting. Pitbull's back in another main card spot of a pay-per-view. I kind of get it. After his last fight against Yair Rodriguez, and oh, by the way, Pitbull is fighting before Yair fights again. So where is Yair? Waiting for his title shot? It's so stupid. Pitbull was disappointing in the Yair fight. Don't get me wrong. Yair basically more than doubles Patricio's striking output in that fight. And for all of us, hardcores who watch the PFLs, who used to watch Bellator, it has not been, a very good last couple, just a year as a whole for us. We saw Patricio Pitbull lose. We just saw Patchy Mix lose, and Movsar Evloev is going to fight Aaron Pico. Great. Hey, Carlos Leal, though. I'm telling you guys about Carlos Leal. Up-and-coming guy in the PFL. Couldn't get past Sadabusi, though. Anyways. The problem with Pitbull, he's just old, man. He's 36. 38, sorry. 38. Ooh. Can he beat Dan Ige at this point of his career? I don't know. Dan Ige was an underdog in his last fight against Sean Woodson. I didn't understand that at all. I picked Dan Ige to win. He ultimately won the fight, right? That fight was 1-1 going into the third. Woodson easily wins the first round. Dan Ige wins the second round. Third round, Dan Ige says enough of this, throws a big overhand, and puts Sean Woodson, or it might have been a straight. Anyways, puts Sean Woodson down and ultimately finishes the fight on the ground. Great performance for Dan Ige. He shows again in that fight, okay, the power's still there. Dan Ige at his best can do that to you. Can Patricio Pitbull, adapt in a fight against Dan Ige where he's going to see power coming back at the other side, at the other side here? And will Pitbull be willing to throw back? I don't know. Dan Ige hits so hard, man. He just does. This is one of the hardest hitters at 145. I mean, when he wins, he's cracking you. The Woodson fight, Andre Feely, Damon Jackson. I mean, there's a reason that, again, all of Gavin Tucker. I mean, remember Gavin Tucker? He was going on his big run, runs into Dan Ige. Career is never the same, right? There's a reason, again, he's called 50K Ige. When he finds the button and when he connects, it's usually not spelling victory for his opponent. I'm picking against Pitbull. Oh, I can't believe I'm doing this. I hate that I'm doing this, but I'm picking against Pitbull here. I just don't know. Guys, Pitbull's 38. He's 38, and I'll be upfront about it here. I thought he was going to be able to overcome that in his last fight. I thought Yair Rodriguez, okay, I think Pitbull's taking him down. Well, he couldn't take down, Patricio Pitbull could not take down Yair Rodriguez in his last fight. And on the feet, he was, and obviously Yair is a much bigger fighter than Patricio, but Patricio has dealt with bigger guys his entire career. This is a guy who used to fight, who had fought at 155 pounds before. He's fighting at 145 now. I mean, these guys shouldn't be that big for him, He struggled dealing with the size of Yair and the length and the reach of Yair. He struggled just in general striking with Yair, and he couldn't get the fight down. I mean, I guess, again, the reach isn't going to be all there. No, Dan's got a 6-inch reach advantage on Patricio, and they're the same height. You guys got an inch of height on him. So, again, I don't know how Pitbull's going to be able to get in range. He looks so just not like Pitbull in the fight against Yair. And it's a shame, again, he's well past his prime now in the UFC. God bless Ben Askren, and I'm so glad he's doing better. But legitimately, Patricio Pitbull is kind of what Ben Askren was when Askren came into the UFC. Older guy, was great in Bellator, great elsewhere, comes into the UFC, he's just past his prime. And if Michael Chandler waited, and I know, again, Michael Chandler never, became a champion, but did fight for the belt. If Michael Chandler came to the UFC 2 years later, that's kind of what Michael Chandler would have been. Because, look at what Michael Chandler is right now, right? Maybe not to the same extent, maybe like 3 years later. Well, he arrived in 20. Yeah, if Michael Chandler arrived in like 2023, that's kind of what it would have been, right? So Chandler avoided it by coming to the UFC earlier, but that's what Pittbull's suffering from, and obviously Ben Askren suffered from in the UFC, is they just came into the promotion way too late. Not everyone's Anderson Silva. Well, Anderson Silva came in like when he was like 30, so that's besides the point. Anyways, Pittbull's not getting any younger, man. He's 38, and I just feel like he's going to struggle a lot with not just the power that Dan Ige throws, but the reach that Dan Ige is going to have too. Ige, I believe, is going to be able to have whatever he wants in this one. Ige is building off a lot of momentum, fighting a much taller guy in his last fight in Sean Woodson, right? A guy that towered over Ige. Woodson 6'2", Ige's 5'7". Ige knocked him out. And on the ground too, I mean, while Patricio didn't look all that, content on trying to wrestle Yair, I don't know if that's going to be the same in this fight against Ige, but Ige's defensive wrestling is good enough, I believe. Especially when I feel like if Pittbull is shooting takedowns, he's just shooting takedowns to shoot takedowns. He's not setting it up with anything. He's shooting takedowns because he's getting beat on the feet and he has to do it. Just try to switch it up because whatever's working on the feet's not working. So he's just going to shoot blindly with no setup and he's going to get stuffed and it's just not going to result in a good finish or a good outcome for him. I'm going Dan 50K Ige to win the fight by unanimous decision. I get it. I was speaking at lengths about how great the power was from Dan Ige, and while that is true, Pittbull did go 3 rounds with Yair. I get it. Yair doesn't hit as hard as Dan Ige does, but I do think Pittbull is going to be tough and is going to be tough enough to stop. So I think Ige wins it by decision. I'm going to go 30-27 on 2 cards, 29-28 on the other. Give me Dan 50K Ige by unanimous decision. Should be a decent fight, but again, Pittbull's 38, and I just don't think he's going to want to throw with Ige like that. And Ige is more than willing to do that. So give me Dan to win the fight. Our feature fight of the night comes in the welterweight division. This is like 3 years in the making. Kevin Holland and Daniel Rodriguez. I don't know if you've been waiting for this fight, but originally scheduled for UFC 279. Originally Nate Diaz versus Khamzat Chimaev. That entire card got rearranged to Nate Diaz, Tony Ferguson, Kevin Holland, Khamzat Chimaev, and Li Jingliang versus Daniel Rodriguez. Again, original fight was supposed to be Holland-Rodriguez. Holland got the Khamzat fight. Rodriguez then just gets to fight the Leech. He beat the Leech, but really shouldn't have gotten the nod. This is confusing matchmaking for me. Okay? It is. Kevin Holland, after his last fight, calls for Colby Covington. Colby Covington's not coming back right now and fighting Kevin Holland. I don't know if Colby Covington's ever going to fight. I think if Colby does come back, I believe the fight for him is going to be Gilbert Burns, I believe. I think the Wonderboy fight's out of the picture now because I believe Colby's actually just, honestly, too high in the rankings for Wonderboy at this point. Anyways, Kevin Holland beats Luque, calls out Colby. We knew that fight wasn't going to happen next, but he goes from calling out Colby Covington to getting to fight Daniel Rodriguez. Now, obviously, this doesn't matter to Kevin Holland. Kevin Holland is here to make money. I guess he's a little interested now in climbing the ranks. He's never been the most interested because, again, he's just been here to make a boatload of cash. But he was calling, and again, he called for Colby, but because he was the highest ranked guy who was the easiest to beat. Daniel Rodriguez is going to be really easy for Kevin Holland to beat. Really easy for Kevin Holland to beat. Kevin Holland's coming off back-to-back wins, a unanimous decision victory over Gunnar Nelson, and a submission victory via the Anaconda choke against Vicente Luque. I'm telling you right now, he's going to knock out D-Rod in the first round. Yeah, I believe so. Only guy to knock out D-Rod is Ian Machado Gary, but Machado Gary did do it in the first as well. Low-key, does Holland sub D-Rod? Because Neil Magny sub D-Rod. Ooh, I can see it. Path of least resistance is via the grappling. Kevin Holland saw success wrestling Daniel Rodriguez. Rodriguez won, but still, that's kind of what guys go to against D-Rod. Kevin Gastelum took down D-Rod. I might go sub here. I think I am going submission. I'm going Kevin Holland first round sub against Daniel Rodriguez. Hear me out. I think Holland pieces him on the feet. I think either he drops him or he does just look for a takedown. And Kevin Holland eventually does submit Daniel Rodriguez. Kevin Holland's choice of finish, by the way, recently, after knocking guys down, it's kind of always been like this too. Hell, look back at the Michael Chiesa fight back in Utah years ago. When he gets a guy in danger and, he's got a guy scrambling or whatnot, Holland will look for the sub instead of just punching. Hell, the Tim Means fight as well. That's just what Holland's been doing recently. Kevin Holland has 10 submissions now against 13 knockouts, right? That's just, hell, all of Holland's last 3 finishes are all by submission. Chiesa, Ozil Shashek, and Luque. So I think we get another sub here against Daniel Rodriguez. Guys, D-Rod is just not on Kevin Holland's level. Holland at 70 is a scary proposition, right? At 85, we saw that against Roman Dolidze. We saw it against Rainier de Ridder. But okay, RDR is about to fight Robert Whittaker next week in Abu Dhabi. We'll get to that when we get there. But at 70, Kevin Holland is just a different fighter. He's actually in fight shape. He's trains for 70 fights. He's, cutting weight and whatnot. And he just looks so much better down here. He isn't, he can't get bullied on the ground at 70 like he does at 85. Roman Dolidze, Rainier de Ridder are the biggest, examples of that. Hell, even look back to why he went down to 70 in the first place. Derek Brunson, Marvin Vettori. Holland's just not big enough to fight 185 pounds. 170 is a perfect weight class for him, though. Because you saw a grappler like Gunnar Nelson try to fight Kevin Holland, and what happened at 170 pounds? Well, Holland just beat him, right? You can't bully Kevin Holland on the ground at 170 pounds. Holland is more than willing to fight a stand-up fight with you, but at the same time, if he's a better grappler, or if he finds a pathway to a submission, he's going to take it. And that's why I think he's going to sub D-Rod here. Rodriguez is coming off a TKO victory over Santiago Ponzinibbio. It's an unk fight that was 1-1 going into the third. I thought Ponzinibbio was actually building a lot of momentum going into that third round. We had Ponzinibbio to win the fight. Building a lot of momentum, looks really good in the second round. Third round, though, gets cracked and knocked out. D-Rod now coming off back-to-back wins over Alex Morono and obviously the Ponzinibbio victory. Lose to Kelvin Gastelum, albeit up a weight class because Gastelum couldn't make weight. Fights prior before that, 2 losses. Neil Magny by submission to Ian Machado Gary. Shouldn't have got the win in the Li Jingliang fight, but it is what it is. I opened the fight prediction with this, and I'm going to close it with this. Kevin Holland's just on a higher level than Daniel Rodriguez. On the feet, he's a higher level fighter, and on the ground, he's a higher level fighter as well. Either way, there are going to be multiple avenues to victory for Kevin Holland in this fight. Whichever way he wants it, he will likely be able to get it. So it's pick your poison if you're Daniel Rodriguez. I firmly believe Kevin Holland's winning this fight. He's going to win it by first round submission to pick up his 16th now victory in the UFC. Again, we talk about the exclusive club that has 20 wins in the promotion. Kevin Holland is 32 years of age. He fights 4 times a year, and he's about to, notch his 16th win in the UFC. He's got a long way to Jim Miller. But if Holland keeps up the activity, keeps fighting guys like D-Rod and like Gunnar Nelson and like 2025 Vicente Luque, maybe someday he does get to Jim Miller's record. For now, though, Kevin Holland submits Daniel Rodriguez. I believe he gets it done by first round submission. There are just levels to this. Our co-main event in the evening, Paulo Costa, Roman Kopylov. Okay. I have a vision for this fight, okay? Slugfest, I think. Slugfest Fight starts out as slugfest, kind of, as the fight goes on, though, both guys are kind of sucking air, and it's just kind of a sloppy fight that, one guy pulls away from. That's how I envision this fight going. Kind of specific, and I kind of detailed you, Luke Rockhold, Paulo Costa a little bit here. And I know this fight's not an elevation like that fight was in Utah back in August of 2022. Guys, Paulo Costa, I was looking at Paulo Costa's fights today, and I came to the realization, I was like, yeah, this guy hasn't beaten a UFC caliber guy, or a guy, I guess, Luke Rockhold's coming out of, he basically came out of retirement to fight Paulo Costa, okay? So, not much to put into that fight. Take away Luke Rockhold, Paulo Costa's last win in the UFC is pre-pandemic. August 2019 over Yoel Romero. Great fight. Got him a title fight. Actually got Yoel the title fight first. But That's the last time Paulo Costa's won a fight in the UFC other than Luke Rockhold. A fight before that's Uriah Hall. A fight before that's Johnny Hendricks. Paulo Costa has not beaten a current UFC fighter. It's a problem. I mean, it's a huge problem. He's lost 4 out of his last 5 fights, and here's the thing, though, with Paulo Costa, he only fights top guys. These 4 losses are Israel Adesanya, Marvin Vettori, whenever Luke Rockhold, and then Whitaker and Strickland. Doesn't look all that bad in the Strickland fight. Obviously loses 4 rounds in that fight. One judge gave him the win, which is odd. I thought lost all 5 rounds. You can make the case that he wins 1. Robert Whitaker, Costa catches Whitaker with a heel kick at the end of the first round. Whitaker gets it going, finds himself, wins the second 2 rounds. So Costa's been right there, but he just hasn't been able to break through. He gets Roman Kopylov here, who I think is trouble for Paulo Costa. Because to me, he is just a more active on the feet version of Costa, I think. At least in a 3-round environment. Because we've seen that at Costa in 3-round fights, like the Whitaker fight. He pulls the trigger in the first round. Second and third rounds, he's not pulling the trigger at all. He looks good in the first, and then he kind of just gets neutralized as the fight goes on, and is just not able to get it going in the second and third round. And I guess it's the only Paulo Costa fight we've seen in the last 5 years that's gone 3 rounds, so I guess my point isn't, made all that well here. But it gets to a point, guys. Paulo Costa's won 1 fight since 2019. I'm going to take the guy who's actually winning fights. So I gave away the prediction really early here. I'm going Roman Kopylov by decision. I can't trust Costa at this point of his career to win fights. I just can't. Kopylov fights a really competitive fight against Chris Curtis. I thought Kopylov was winning at the end of the fight. I thought it was Kopylov round 1, Curtis round 2, Kopylov was winning round 3. That's how I was scoring it, okay? Kopylov ends up getting the knockout finish, the TKO finish with the second left. Should have gone on the scorecards, but it is what it is. Kopylov gets the win. Good on him. Chris Curtis is good. Saw it last night against Max Griffin. That's a good fighter. Not saying he's better than Paulo Costa, but Kopylov fought in the pocket with Chris Curtis, exchanged with Chris Curtis, a guy who hits hard, was able to eat that damage, and was able to continue walking forward and ultimately won the fight by TKO, and was probably going to win by decision. Roman Kopylov's only losses in the UFC are his first 2 fights against Carl Roberson and Albert Duraev back in 2019 and 2021, and then Anthony Hernandez by rear naked choke. Paulo Costa's not taking down Roman Kopylov. You're going to see a striking affair. A striking affair that I believe Roman Kopylov's actually going to win. More so, though, this prediction is, hate to say it, Paulo Costa just being underwhelming. That's more of my rationale here on the pick. Costa has just been so underwhelming in his fights. The Strickland fight, I mean, it is a jab teep fest, don't get me wrong, right? Strickland's outworking Costa in every single round. You can, I guess, make the case Costa wins the second, I believe, is the 1 round. Ultimately, Strickland wins every single round. He does, okay? Whitaker, Costa looks good in the first. Second and third rounds, he just deteriorates. Especially in the third. Which, we'll see. Luke Rockhold fight was also a 3-round fight. Costa probably wins every single round. I think one judge may have scored the third for Rockhold. No, they didn't. Okay, every single round was scored for Paulo Costa. But again, that was more of a gimmick exhibition fight than anything. I'm going Kopylov to win. I just like Kopylov's boxing better, man. He throws a really nice head kick that we saw in the Claudio Ribeiro fight. And I think he's better than Costa at this point of his career. Guys, Kopylov, Paulo Costa's last win was against Rockhold. Since that Rockhold fight, at least in the Kopylov timeline, guys, here's to put things into perspective. When Paulo Costa beat Luke Rockhold, Roman Kopylov hadn't won a UFC fight yet. He's won 6 fights, and he's had 7 fights since Paulo Costa's last won one. I'm going Kopylov here. I like his boxing more than Paulo Costa. I think the activity out of Roman Kopylov is really going to benefit him here. It's a pure striking battle, don't get me wrong, and that's why, it's a BMF fight. You're going to see 2 guys trying to take each other's heads off in the middle of the cage. Again, I think there's a potential this fight does get kind of boring as it goes on, though. I think both these guys are going to kind of blow their gas tank early, I think, but ultimately that's going to favor Kopylov more because, again, the Costa gas tank has been the center of discussion for the longest time. I think Kopylov wins it by decision. Might not be the most fun pick. What has Paulo Costa shown us in the last 5 years to prove to me that he can beat Roman Kopylov? Not like Kopylov's a future world champion, don't get me wrong. I just think he's better than Costa at both the points, and at these two guys' career. I'm going Kopylov here by unanimous decision. Let's move on to the main event of the evening for the BMF Championship. Max blessed Holloway and Dustin Poirier. It is their trilogy bout at 155 pounds here in Dustin the Diamond's retirement fight in his home state of Louisiana. There is a lot to unpack here in the main event. Max Holloway's a slight favorite again. I'm pretty sure he was a favorite in the second fight. I can check right now. I don't know about the first fight. I believe Dustin was, Max is a minus 230 favorite in the second fight. First fight was probably Dustin favorite. Yeah, Dustin was a minus 600 favorite in the first fight back in 2012. But again, Max was a huge favorite in Atlanta in 2019. Dustin wins the decision. Great fight. Dustin deals with adversity and wins the later rounds and wins the fight. Great victory for Dustin the Diamond, right? I would say his signature victory so far, right? Doesn't win all the later rounds. Wins the 5th round to ultimately win the fight, right? You can make the case he won the 4th too, right? Probably won the 4th. Yeah, did win the 4th. Max's round's the 3rd. So, does win the later rounds. It's the signature victory in the career of Dustin Poirier so far. Undoubtedly, it's the signature victory. Can he find another one? Well, I guess the Conor win, but it's the Conor win. How can I forget? But still, interim belt was won in this fight. Anyways, can Dustin get it done? Again, at home, 3rd time around against Max. He's beat him twice, but again, those fights took place in 2019 and 2012. So, respectively, 6 years ago and 13 years ago. Can't put too much into it, right? Dustin's coming off a loss to Islam Makhachev. Fought a valiant effort, but obviously Islam was able to get the sub in the 5th round. Islam was on his way to win a decision, don't get me wrong. But a hard-fought battle for Dustin Poirier, and in all fairness, undeserved title shot. He got the title shot after beating Benoit Saint-Denis, and prior to that, he got knocked out for the BMF Championship against Justin Gaethje. And that's why I think people are taking Holloway. I think that's why Holloway is the favorite here, is that Poirier has lost 2 out of his last 3 fights, and his only victory is against Benoit Saint-Denis, which at the time was really hype. Dustin was a plus 250 dog in that fight. Oh man, we made a lot of money on that fight. But what has Benoit done since? He's won 1 fight, against a, borderline UFC fighter, right? Lost to Renato Moicano by finish. For Max Holloway, this is a guy who did knock out Justin Gaethje, right? UFC 300. I've talked about that fight a million times. That entire fight is changed when Max blessed Holloway, lands the spinning back kick, and busts the nose wide open of Justin Gaethje at the end of the 1st round. Gaethje just wasn't the same after that. Max was on his way to winning a decision, likely either 4-1 or 3-2, probably 3-2. Ends up going out there getting the knockout with 1 second left. They stand and bang to end the fight, obviously. Max's last fight, fights Ilia Topuria, the best fighter on the planet and the pound-for-pound best fighter in the world. Ilia Topuria knocks out Max Holloway in the 3rd round. Sucks. First time Max has ever been knocked out, but again, it's Ilia. Nobody beats this guy, and nobody doesn't get knocked out by this guy unless you're named Josh Emmett. But how does Max respond? Max has never been knocked out before, ever. And at 33 years of age, he's coming off the first knockout loss. He's taking on a guy he's already lost to twice. I don't know, man. I get it, the Max win over Justin Gaethje's great, but be honest, look at Holloway's last 5 fights. Dominated by Alexander Volkanovski, lost every single round of that fight. Arnold Allen beat him in Kansas City, not on Max's level. Chan Sung Jung, old zombie in Singapore, Holloway knocks him out. And then Gaethje, who, again, if Holloway doesn't land the spinning back kick at the end of the 1st round, again, that's just cage fighting, but if he doesn't land that kick, Gaethje might win. Gaethje won the 4th and 5th rounds in the 5th round prior to the knockout. Right? And then Ilia knocks out Max. And I get it. Dustin has traded wins and losses since 2021. Beats Conor, loses to Charles, beats Chandler, loses to Gaethje, beats Benoit, and loses to Makhachev. What does that mean, though? He is due for a victory. That's not the reason why I'm taking Dustin Poirier, but ultimately, yes, I'm taking Dustin Poirier to win the fight by decision. There's a couple things that go into this fight for me. Okay, one, I've already seen Dustin beat Max Holloway. Yes, it was 6 years ago. I completely understand that. That was in 2019. It's been a while. Still, though, I have seen Dustin Poirier beat Max Holloway before. It was a fight where Max is trying to out-volume Dustin, and he does it for parts of that fight. who's inflicting more damage, and ultimately the damage Dustin Poirier does against Max Holloway alters the fight and ends up winning him the interim championship back in Atlanta again in 2019, right? Dustin shoots a lot of takedowns, only gets one officially in the 4th round, but Dustin's pressuring with that, obviously. And Dustin is winning in a lot of the striking exchanges. Again, Max's numbers look good because it's Max Holloway. He's always throwing something. He's always, throwing significant strikes. But the damage, obviously, is all towards the diamond in that one. Second reason I'm taking Dustin Poirier. I feel like Max's run recently is a little overrated. I know how good Max Holloway is. Do not get me wrong. Again, though, you take away the Gaethje win. Arnold Allen, Zombie. I'm more looking at the Alexander Volkanovski 3rd fight. And I know that's 3 years ago now. I'm not saying Max Holloway is a bad fighter. I think Max Holloway is, one of the best boxers in the UFC of all time, right? I can't call him the best now because Ilya exists. But look at the Volk fight. And completely different fight, obviously, Volkanovski and Poirier. But Volk beats him every single round and dominates Max. And sure, Max beats Allen. He beats Zombie. He beats Gaethje. Ilya flatlines him. But again, I think the Volkanovski fight's really telling. It's a 25-minute just war that Volk beats Holloway to the punch every single time. Max isn't able to establish anything. And Volkanovski's jab really starts and, really just, really sets the tone in that fight. I think Dustin's going to be really hard to put away here. Again, a lot's going for Poirier here. It's his last fight. Dustin has made it very clear that I'm not fighting this fight just to fight it. Just to say I fought in Louisiana. I get to walk out Lil Wayne before the fight just so I could fight at home. No, Dustin's made it very clear he is trying everything in his power to win this fight to get his storybook ending with the BMF championship in hand. The UFC made their own card just for Dustin Poirier here in Louisiana. I think he's going to take advantage, and I think he's going to beat Max Holloway. And I think, like the second fight in Atlanta, I believe the damage Dustin Poirier does is going to be way more, or is going to mean much more and way much more in this fight compared to the volume that Max Holloway throws back at him. And also, I don't know how Max responds to a knockout loss. Max is 33, but in MMA years, Max Holloway's really 40. Let's just be honest. He's taken as much damage, if not more damage, than Dustin Poirier has in his career. He just has. Max has had the same amount of fights in the UFC as Dustin Poirier. They're both 22-8 in the UFC. Dustin does have the no contest to Eddie Alvarez in there, but still, official bouts. They have the same amount of fights. They've both had 30 fights. And Max is younger. He's 3 years younger. Dustin's 36, which is, kind of young, honestly, to retire in MMA, especially a guy at his level who could continue to fight big fights, top 10 fights for the rest of his career. But obviously, there comes a point, you probably can't fight for the belt ever again or win the belt. Get out while you can. Make your money, which Dustin said he's made quite a bit of. Get your money and get out. It's not a sport you want to stay long in, obviously, if possible. I think Dustin's winning. I think he is. I look at Max and I say, okay, yes, it's Max Holloway. Great boxing, great volume. Dustin's beat him twice. And sure, the first fight does not mean much. The 2019 fight at lightweight means a lot to me. It does. Dustin out-damages Max in that fight. And also, how does Holloway respond to getting knocked out by Ilya? And I also think, again, I said this earlier, I think his recent run's a little overrated. 50-45 by Volk. Beats Arnold Allen, who's not on his level. Beats a retiring Zombie. And beats Gaethje. And again, credit to Max for landing the spinning back kick. But ultimately, that fight's completely changed by that one kick. And really affects the way Gaethje's able to breathe and all around just fight post that moment. Ilya obviously knocks out Max Holloway. Close fight until the knockout, but Ilya does Ilya things. Going with the diamond. Taking Dustin Poirier to win. I think the damage does a lot for Dustin in this one. And I don't think Poirier is going to lose in another big moment. It's a crazy career for Dustin Poirier. The highs, obviously, beating Max Holloway for the interim championship. Beating Conor McGregor not once, but twice in back-to-back fights in Abu Dhabi, then in Las Vegas. It's been a career filled of those big moments. He has never been able to win the biggest moment, though, and that was to win a championship. I get it, interim, and this is a BMF belt, but in the career of Dustin Poirier, there is no more world championship. There is no more undisputed gold. the only championship he is ever going to be afforded to potentially win now at this point of his career at 36 years of age, where he's already said this is no matter what his final fight, is the BMF championship. He's going to fight this fight like his life depends on it. And I believe Dustin Poirier is going to come out on the right end of it. I'm going with Dustin the Diamond Poirier to become the new BMF champion. He will beat Max Holloway, and he will get it done by unanimous decision. I'm going 3 rounds to 2 for the Diamond, Dustin Poirier. Folks, thank y'all for watching our UFC 318 predictions here from from New Orleans, Louisiana. If you haven't yet, though, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below for more. Make sure you like if you did enjoy the video. Make sure to join us later in the week for the best bets and the PFL predictions as well. Folks, thank y'all for watching, and Mamba forever.